Hello, I'm Diane Gremmel with the New Era Times, an online newspaper bridging science and spirit. And today we are here with Derrel Sims, the alien hunter. Derrel is part of the hit Animal Planet program, Uncovering Aliens, and he's been experiencing alien contact since the age of 4. So today he's here to talk to us about all things alien. Welcome, Derrel. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So you yourself are someone, you're a former agent with the CIA.
Well, kind of.
Okay.
There's a difference between a spy and people who have been sheep dipped.
Right.
Sheep dipping is basically when the agency goes in and takes people out of the military and uses them for themselves.
Right.
And that's what happened to me. I volunteered during the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And it's just that simple. Then I ended up with them for 2 years, and then I went into Korea, went into the military, and finished the rest of my tour in Korea.
And so having a background that is somewhat left-brained, it's amazing that you are as open to this because you've had the experience yourself since you were 4 years old, correct?
That is correct.
Do you remember the first time that you yourself were abducted by an alien?
I do.
Okay.
Actually, I remember the last part of it.
Okay.
The last part of it worked like this. I'm laying in my little bed in 1005 South K Street, Midland, Texas. My mother was mortified. She said, "You can't remember that?" And I said, "I can, Mom. I lived there."
Yes.
So the entity is leaving. He's walking toward the wall, and I can't figure out, why is he walking to the wall? Who is that? Where's his clothes?
Wow.
I mean, it's freezing cold. I'm under all my little covers, and I didn't realize he just brought me back.
Okay.
And I opened my eyes, and I'm coherent, and I can't figure out what is he doing. And as I'm thinking this, who is that? He turns. He can hear me think. He turns around and looks, and he's got these large black eyes.
Oh wow.
But they're perfectly round.
Yes.
They're not the Hollywood version of the elliptical black eyes.
Right.
And people ask sometimes, what does that mean? I said, it means they had different models back then.
Okay.
This was a Ford. The types they have now is a Lexus, so it's just different. So, long story short is he realized he's made a mistake because it's awake now, that'd be me. And I'm not scared, I'm not paralyzed, I'm sitting at my bed looking at him, and I can't figure out what's he doing without any clothes. He's real skinny, long, skinny little thing.
So there was a humanoid aspect to this.
He didn't remind me of anybody human.
Okay.
But I couldn't figure out what is.
So your 4-year-old mind is not going monster either.
I don't.
Okay.
My parents wouldn't let me watch a monster movie. There aren't any monsters in my life. I don't have bad dreams. Don't sleepwalk.
Right.
So I looked at him. Of course, as little kids notice things that adults probably wouldn't notice right off the bat. I noticed he didn't have any clothes on. He didn't have a TT. He didn't have a belly button. And I can't figure out why is he different than I am? And of course, after 4 years of investigating, I realized if you don't have genitalia, you probably don't reproduce.
Okay.
If you don't have a belly button or a navel,
You weren't born.
you didn't get here the way we did.
Right.
You were hatched, cloned, or manufactured.
Okay. And so after this, how often did these abductions tend to take place during your childhood?
My abductions had started at age 4 and ended it violently at age 17. During that time period, about one every year and a half or so would occur. The more significant one for me in the middle of my events was at age 12, 1960. And in that one, it's where I discovered the concept of alien implants.
Okay.
Because I was taken and I was lying on a table with my feet elevated by 11 degrees, and I could hear what they were saying to each other. And I also broke down and started crying because I could figure out why would they want to do this? And the weird thing is I could understand what it was that they were saying in the scientific sense of the word.
Okay.
And which none of that made any sense because I'm 12 years old. That just doesn't make any sense.
But something on some level mentally was picking up on what it was.
They speak in pictures and imagery.
Yes.
And I picked that up, and so I got it. I didn't understand all that it meant.
Was it frightening to you?
It was very strange. I couldn't figure out why, but I knew what they were going to do to me, and they were very clear about that, and I was horrified. And anyway, the next thing I know is the doctor type who looks like the little gray guy, but he's just a taller version of him. And he comes over with this long needle-like device about 8 or 9 inches long with a silver spear on the end of it. He rams it up my nasal passage and breaks the bones back behind in my nasal passage and goes back behind the eye. I'm screaming. And there was no anesthesia, there was nothing, anything whatsoever. And he pulls the thing out and the little sphere's missing, and I'm mortified. but to cap all this, some people probably say, you know, how do you know any of that's really true? This probably, you made that up or you dreamed it. I didn't dream anything. First of all, I know where I was at. I was outside the house. I mean, I was inside and then I walked out. And the long story short about that is that as a veteran, I go to the VA hospital every so often, and 2 different events, they have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that someone has tampered with me long before, and there's no evidence of how that ever happened. I've broken ribs on one side from my last violent event, and there's the ENT looked inside my nose and said, "When did you have the surgery?" I said, "What surgery are you talking about?" Of course, I knew, but I didn't tell him anything. And he said, "Someone has cut the inside of your nasal septum. I mean, cut a hole clean through it." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Of course, I did. But anyway, these are just little evidences that show you that you're not making anything up. It's medically provable.
Right, and that's something that I want to really get into in a few minutes, because that, I think, is one of the most fascinating aspects of alien abductions is the implants. But first, I know that there are several types of aliens that people seem to encounter. Some that have been described as sort of tall, Nordic, and blonde. Others that are the classic grays. There are what are called the browns. So, are all of them from the same place? Are they related? What has been your understanding of it?
I'm going to give you the fast food version of 40 years of research.
Okay.
They all are connected. There's 7 primary flavors.
Okay.
And models, as I call them. And the best way to describe them is that the DNA, their DNA, comes from Earth. Somebody took the DNA from here, took it somewhere else, worked on them, manufactured, made, hatched, or cloned them, brought them back here, and introduced them to mankind as aliens from other worlds.
Okay.
And the alien himself probably believes that story.
Okay.
But the fact is, there's no evidence for that. If the DNA comes from here, and it is an example, one of them looks like a reptile.
Right.
And one looks like a praying mantis. And you say, well, there's no evidence that, well, there is. And we actually have some photography. So there's some good eyewitnesses of this. So where are you going to get praying mantis DNA? Probably planet Earth. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of it on the moon.
Okay, so this would be praying mantis DNA, human DNA, a lot of different things mixed.
It's all here.
Okay.
Every bit of it.
So if you look at this are you saying we're a giant laboratory, or?
I'm saying somebody has used Earth for their lab.
Okay.
To get their resources to do whatever it is they intend to do.
Okay.
And mankind seems to be the focus of that, but the focus is ruse. I mean, what's the point?
Okay.
And this is something they have told everybody, every whopper you can imagine.
Do you have any conjecture yourself, Derrel, as to what the point is?
Only my guesstimate is that it's, as an investigator and a former police officer and ex-intelligence and so on, my best guesses, or that it's a hypothesis, is that if the DNA has come from here, it's been remanufactured and brought back here, and there's historical evidence of this, by the way, as well. If that's true, and then they're introduced to us as aliens or whatever, for whatever other dimensions or other worlds, whatever, what's the point of the whopper? I mean, and who's in charge? So to me, someone else is in charge, it's not them. There is a hierarchy even among the alien entities. There are various intelligences. The little ones are so inept that if you put them, a dozen of them in an unlocked room,
right, they couldn't get
without
out.
Instructions, they'd starve to death.
Right.
Because they have to have information.
Who are the most highly evolved of the aliens?
I don't think evolution is the right word, because if you're cloned, hatched, cloned, or manufactured, you're not evolved. You got here.
Okay.
You're just established.
The most intellectually based of the aliens.
That would probably be the mantis, and in some cases maybe the humanoid.
Okay, and the humanoids are these people who tend to be blonde and
not really.
Okay.
That's because people who are uninformed read this stuff, and so they say
that's
Nordics,
that's what I'd like you to clear
out. They're a red hair. The American Indians used to talk about the white men with the red beards and the red hair long before white people got here.
Right.
Well, those are the quote-unquote Nordics back then for the American Indian. And they're red-haired, they're black-haired, they're brunettes. I mean, there are skinny ones, there are tall, muscular ones, there's different kinds.
Okay.
There really are.
And so all of them, you feel, may even be misinformed themselves about what their true purpose is.
That is correct.
Okay. Are all of the alien types our enemy? That's another question.
I don't think so. Let me make a clear distinction, because some people got a kind of a goofy idea that, oh my God, he's the alien hunter. He's going to beat one of them up or something. I said, I have no interest in doing that.
Right.
I don't care. I'd love to catch one of them, like to talk to him and so on. But the fact is that they are amoral.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any morals. If
Right.
they're told to make you
Mm-hmm.
love them and you're going to become an ecologist, you will.
Okay.
If they catch you, by the same token, they say they get from orders from higher up that we want to mutilate these cows and so on, and also mutilate this lady. We have cases like that, by the way. They will, with equal enthusiasm, because they're just following orders. They're like a 286 computer with legs.
Okay. So all of the aliens, in your opinion, lack any moral function, that they are simply repeating steps that have
Following
been
orders.
programmed towards them.
Following orders, that's all they're doing.
Okay, so do you feel that humans are different than that? Do you feel the human race has a moral compass in a way that none of the alien races do?
I do, and we can't. I can't say that quote unquote these seven are the only entities in the whole universe. I don't believe that at all.
They're the ones you're aware
But
of.
they're the ones that are primary, so I have to talk about them.
Sure.
So they're here, so you have to address that. Could there be billions of others? Hey, I don't. Probably, but I don't know anything about that because I haven't met them. But these
Okay.
we have.
So
we can address that.
the knowledge that you have been able to uncover so far is these types of aliens, the fact that they seem to have no moral pattern, that they seem to be capable of any type of interaction with humans, from kind to mutilating.
Whatever needs to be done.
Okay. Are they utilizing women of Earth as incubators?
Yes.
Okay, so there are pregnancies that are lost that are not truly lost, but are reassigned via.
Well, the Mutual UFO Network did a study several years ago with their doctors and said this phenomenon is not true.
Okay.
They had good, strong evidence that in fact was not correct.
Mm-hmm.
I did a presentation up there to some of the MUFON heads, and they were sitting there stunned as I showed some sonograms of an alien entity inside a woman.
Okay,
And they're like, I said, just because you don't know it doesn't mean it isn't true.
exactly.
I said, most of my work is private, it's not secret.
Okay.
It's just I don't care to be in the limelight. It's irrelevant to me. I don't care.
What is the most important aspect of being someone who is uncovering aliens? To you, what is the most important aspect of that? If it's not being seen, known, and heard, what is it for you?
For me, it's there are people who want to, like thousands of people on the Facebook, that want to be, I'm with you, and I don't care.
Right.
It's irrelevant to me.
Right.
I don't need any help in that regard. I don't need a fan club in the sense of the word. I need a pat on the head or something. For me, what I like the idea of physical evidence. It verifies a lot of what I already know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things I've already known for many, many years, but that gives me a substantiation, a baseline in which to pattern my work.
Is educating people important to you?
It is to some degree. Most people, they're in one or two camps, either like it or they don't, and they want to ignore it, or they're in the tank, so to speak. And to me, they've already made up their minds, so there's not a whole lot of educating there to do.
Got you. So I think one of the important aspects is that there are people who have had, and I want to talk more about this in the next segment, but who've had an experience and don't know what to do with it.
Yes,
and simply knowing this is not unusual for this to happen. This is happening more, can be, I think, wonderfully helpful.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick break. I'm Diane Gremmel with the New Era Times, and we're here with Derrel Sims. We're going to be right back to talk about aliens, alien implants, and how to tell if you've had an alien abduction experience. Hello, I'm Diane Gremmel with the New Era Times, an online newspaper bridging the gap between science and spirit. And I'm here with Derrel Sims, the alien hunter, who is part of his show on the Animal Planet, Uncovering Aliens. And Derrel, we were talking before the break about alien abductions. One question I had for you, how do we know if we've been abducted? And I told you earlier, I had an experience when I was young of missing time, and literally looking up and seeing something that appeared to be an otherworldly craft. But it took me many years to actually read something about someone else going through a similar experience. So what kind of signs should we look for?
The first thing, one of the common things that people find is missing time. Sometimes it's only a few minutes or a few hours. In one case with one engineer that I worked with years ago, he was with another individual. They were on a camping trip.
Okay.
They came back to Fort Collins and they saw a UFO out in the middle of the highway and they thought it was a police accident or something like that. And as they pulled up there, it wasn't. And they were picked up, truck and all, and their missing time involved several hours, and they didn't fill up with any gas, and they ended up in the state of Texas, not in Colorado.
Okay.
So that's kind of a hint that you were in one state
So
and you're in another one. The next.
They literally
Probably
had
something
no
happened.
memory of what happened between.
That is correct.
Okay.
So their missing time is a possible thing. A certain kind of cuts, scars, lumps, bumps, things that made no sense. I mean, you were there an hour at 7 o'clock in the evening, let's say, and at 9 o'clock you come back, you got this large lump on your shoulder. Some people even have large chunks of flesh missing from their neck or various different things, and it's been cauterized.
So there have been
How did that
things
happen?
implanted in people that we have found and can scientifically prove this is something that does not have a base that would indicate that it was from this planet, correct?
That's true. First of all, I'd like to
Okay.
say about implants, something I discovered in 1960, is that these objects are, number one, extremely rare. Everybody that's an abductee does not have an implant. They all think they do, but they don't. I look at hundreds of x-rays every year, and rarely do I find one.
Okay.
The last person that came to me with that is, in fact, there's two people. Both of them, one of them is a retired assistant attorney general,
Okay.
and the other one is a current attorney general, and they're both abductees with implanted objects.
So do you feel that they would tend to look at certain people who have a certain hierarchy within our government or within our world as being more likely to be of use to them?
I don't think so. To the shock and amazement of everyone seems to think they've got this thing figured out, and I'm not sure that they have at all.
Okay.
Because look, we have NASA engineers that are my abductees,
Okay.
and we have people, I can't figure out how they find food. And aliens interested in both. It
Okay.
doesn't make any difference. They're not picking up our brilliant, brightest scientists and so on. They already know what it is you know. They don't care about that. They're interested in specifically something about us.
Would it be, and the question was, would it be for any of us, the power we have within the human system, or would it be something about us biologically that they are trying to utilize?
The problem is that one of the things we found out I did a big experiment in 1992, and we ended up with some massive evidence. But the bottom line out of the two things that they were very, very interested in, not just the aliens showed up, but someone I call mid-level management, the ones who manage them, they showed up.
Okay.
And we actually have a video of the craft, and it was approximately 600 miles across and 50 miles thick.
Wow.
So that got my attention. And anyway, the two big questions that these mid-level management types were really upset about, they looked at my senior investigator at the time and asked him, said, why did he do this? This was I hunt them, and this was a trap to see if I could catch them in some of their activities. It worked. And he didn't have a clue what was going on, but they did ask the question to him and to the lady that I did some experimentation with their permission. And the question to one of them, as they produced a holographic image of human brain, they said, point to the human soul.
Interesting.
And the person said, nobody knows.
Right.
And in the other room, he was being asked a question, and one of them produced an image of a brain as well and said, point to the human spirit. They seem to be massively interested in that, but the problem is they can't separate those two components from the human being without death occurring.
Right.
So now you've lost your whole experiment.
So
it seems that they're more interested in that than they are in biology. So
the human spirit, the human soul, how it connects with the body. That's the most important. Because you've mentioned, you do not feel that there is a moral compass or soul energy within the aliens, correct?
If there is one, it's only because they were instructed to show you that, to make you think that.
Okay.
In other cases, we have one case where one Nordic guy, just seems to just love this one guy, just takes care of him, does all these wonderful, by the same token, it tortured another guy.
So that was his instruction, okay.
That was the instructions, it's just the way it works.
So do you have alien implants that you could let us see? Do you have anything that you could allow us to look at and that would give us an idea of what type of things are being implanted in people?
The short answer is yes.
Okay. And the long answer is, but I'm not going to. Okay.
Oh, I actually will.
Okay. Would you like to show us something?
Sure.
Okay. For those of us who don't really know a lot about alien implants, do you feel that there is a tracking purpose to them? Do you?
No.
Okay.
None.
What do you feel the purpose is?
Well, I made a presentation of 250 surgeons in John Muir Medical Hospital, and the presentation I did for the 250 surgeons, I made 4 predictions. One of them is if this is before we had done any public surgeries, I said, and we've done 24 to date. I said, if in fact these objects are alien, first of all, there'll be no technology present, and they're like stunned. The second thing is that they'll be attached to a nerve supply. Third thing is that the biological covering around them will show no signs of inflammatory response, either chronic or acute.
Okay.
Well, they just couldn't believe that. After the first surgery, those things were exactly 100% true. Absolutely. So I was correct in my assumption.
So what is your feeling of the purpose of them then?
There are multiple purposes. One of to make this as simple for the audience, not that it is a simple subject, but to simplify this as much as possible, we do a lot of studies with the abductees and contactees, and in our stats we're finding that the implants seem to be connected to the nerve supply for reasons of monitoring the individual, particularly altering levels of serotonin, dopamine, basically neurotransmitters.
Fascinating.
Whoever controls your neurotransmitters
could
runs you.
ostensibly, yes, control
They own you.
the level on which you can communicate on a nonverbal level. It's fascinating.
That was pretty fascinating to me. So just to give you an example.
Okay. Wow.
This was an individual. There were 4 of these, or 3 here.
Okay.
They're Tic Tac size objects.
Are we getting that on the camera, or is there a way to get that?
We can get a cutaway from it.
Okay.
These particular objects were, an individual went camping. He has no understanding of UFOs, doesn't care.
Yes.
He went camping, comes back with a knee injury and missing time. So you have these interesting elements.
Okay.
He comes back, goes to his doctor x-rays, says, I don't know what that is, sends him to a specialist opens him up in his tendon and finds 4 Tic Tac size objects.
Yes.
He says these are not calcifications whatsoever. He said they appear to be a plastic type material. I don't know why 4 of them would be lined up in a row in your tendon. He said it makes no sense whatsoever. I will not be associated with this, and don't ever use my name in association with it.
Wow.
He had some idea something was wrong.
Do they ever find with these implants things like increased radiation levels or anything different in that aspect?
Generally speaking, no. What we found in the first surgical work was that the objects themselves, as an illustration, like the little metal shard there as an example.
Yes.
These we found 4 of these, 3 of them in a woman and 1 in a man, right here in one in Houston and 1 in Columbus.
Right.
And the point is that these objects were taken and studied by Los Alamos, New Mexico Tech, to do qualitative and quantitative analysis. What they found is that the material itself was a literally lamellar needle-like projections about a 1/4 inch long from the Widmanstatten or Yaochung meteorite.
Wow.
Which of course would make it extraterrestrial. They also found that the objects were surrounded by 11 elements that made no sense to the scientists.
Okay.
Why? And of course, you got to understand, this is a blinded study. They did not know what they were looking at. We never tell them.
Okay. So each of these things that was removed, I see that you have crop circle soil. Is that something that you found differences within the soil?
We have all kinds of things. From the implants, we have a lady was sexually assaulted by some creature.
Okay.
She described it looked like kind of like, I don't know what to call it because we don't just have to use a human name. She said it kind of looked like a pig. It sexually assaulted me. They ordered it to happen. There was a witness, a man abductee who was there, who later came forward and identified her and the event and I have the biology of that, of the
Fascinating.
vaginal scrapings,
Okay.
which a forensic lab looked at, and it floored him, scared him, and he said, told my friend who was the doctor, said, don't ever identify me with this in any way, shape, or form.
So in each of these cases, there was something biologically that said this is not from our planet, or this is
Yes.
not, okay.
Yeah, that's one thing, but one individual who was taken, you can see when his abduction ended at 11:29.
Wow.
Because the
Okay.
inside of his watch was melted. And the reason that was kind of fascinating to me is because the individual is a DA. And he made a statement publicly,
That's
this is not
wonderful.
good for your career. But he
But
did it with his wife. They
Wonderful.
were both abductees.
that's, I think, what is important, one of the things that's important about what you're doing is allowing people not to be the only ones who have a story like this, because I didn't understand for many years what might have happened with missing time until I read someone else's account and said, oh, this missing time thing, there's something to that.
One of the best things that can happen to people in these events is to find a support group of like-minded people. We have one online for abductees and contactees, in which you're allowed to discuss your events there, and you'll learn more than you'll ever read in any book anywhere. These people are eyewitnesses to those events. They know exactly what you went through.
And most of them are quite credible as far as you're concerned.
They are. The ones that are, I call incredible, they don't last very long because they want attention and so
Right.
on, and we finally just asked them to leave.
Okay.
We want people who actually want to help or are there to basically serve mankind. I mean, it's
Who've had a legitimate experience.
It's about support. That's what it's all about.
I have a question everyone would want to know. The Men in Black.
Oh no!
Are they real? Is there a
She's asking
real
the question.
anomaly where there are the black sunglasses? Because I've heard this from more than one person that they have been approached by these parties.
The answer to the question is that people have, and the interesting aspect of that is that there are two kinds of Men in Black.
Okay.
Back in the 50s, the 40s and 50s, the United States government would approach people and they would have these black sedans and they wanted to be unidentified as government agents and so on,
Okay.
military.
So this was like
people.
post-Roswell.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And that went on, and that still goes on occasionally.
Okay.
In fact, one of my abductees was interviewed the other day by one of these government MIB types. And the amazing thing was, after that, he told him, you can't tell anybody this, you can't do anything. And the wonderful thing is, some of my abductees are just brilliant. He got his business card. And now I have it. I know where he works.
That's great.
I know everything. Anyway, this is good. The second thing is there's another group of people. These are the alien entities, and they are MIBs.
Okay.
The MIBs, they look very similar, but they dress 50s style. That's really amazing. Even if you go to Slovakia and they tell you about the MIBs there, they say, "But why in the world would they be dressing like an American?"
That's
The 1950s style, the
closest-
fedora
closest
hat and the long
approximate,
coat.
yeah.
Why are they doing that? They can't figure this out. And I said, just tell me your story. We'll talk about that later. These type entities generally are there. They're basically there when the alien has a problem and can't resolve it. The MIB generally will show up, and he's there to
He's
adjust
the cleanup
things.
guy, yeah.
Kind of. There is another group of entities that most people in the UFO community do not know anything about, and that is, I refer to them as, if the alien had an SS, it would be them.
Wow.
And they are not like MIBs at all.
Not
When
nice
they're
people.
called, everybody's in trouble,
Okay.
and they are absolutely horrific.
Alien stormtroopers in the worst possible
That's
way.
in every sense of the word.
Okay. So if you have had an alien experience of some type and you encounter one of these Men in Black, is that something that you should take very, very seriously?
Most people do. They're usually so stunned and in awe of that thing. Usually it's 6.5, 7, maybe foot tall, and they're strange looking. Their eyes just overwhelm you. And so, but one lady was so fascinated. She was so smart. She was a therapist, and she said, "I have something for you." I said, "What's that, sweetie?" And she says, "I didn't know what to do. I was doing apartment management and had my forms with me, and I said, 'Sign this!' And I handed to him. He was so stunned.
Oh, that's great.
He took the pen, and I said, "Are you telling me you have the handwriting of a
An
man?"
autograph
And she said,
of
"I
the
do." I
Man
said,
in
"I'm my
Black."
handwriting in
Yes.
this." Oh my gosh, so I'm very proud of her, of course. You can
That's
imagine.
wonderful.
Yeah,
So
good stuff.
you, if you encounter one of these, be careful, of course, to sort of nod and say, uh-huh.
Well, I would advise most people to do whatever they feel is correct. Everybody's, has their own thinking, but I may not be as kind.
And why are they such lousy dressers?
The alien has, they just don't have a very big wardrobe. And that's just a problem, you know. I'm going to talk to them about that next time.
I find it interesting because the way I think, perhaps if you were talking about post-Roswell, that the CIA agents were coming around in the black, or whatever agents were coming around in the black sedan and talking to people who had perhaps they copied the dress of that time because it seemed most
They want
appropriate.
to keep the idea that they are, that what you saw in the past, the Army guys or Air Force guys, usually saw Air Force intelligence or Office of Naval Investigations, people in civilian clothes. But they try to mimic that in order to make you think that this is all the government.
Okay, then let's go to the government. How much does the government know, and how much are they keeping from us?
It's a very good question. It's a great question. The answer is basically the government doesn't know anything about aliens
Okay.
at all. There is a few people in the intelligence community that are heavily ensconced in non-elected positions. They are there forever, and they know. And they know a lot more than we can imagine. And based on my best information, and I do have some people that work with me on my work that are ex-intelligence and all kinds of stuff, and they're also, many of them are abductees, and they want to know the big one too.
Okay.
And the big thing that seems to be consistent, and this may not agree with some people, but it's true, is that in my opinion, our government, and I don't mean the regular government, I mean those who are in charge of this aspect of the alien understanding, they in effect are worried. We made a huge mistake at Roswell. They announced one day, it's real, we
And
got
now it's
him.
a weather balloon,
And
yes.
a couple of days later, whoa, no, that's not true. Nothing happened.
Right.
But the fact is, I have I'm not a Roswell investigator, but I have some really good evidence myself. And the point being is that my best evidence supports the idea that in fact, that little guy they captured at the end, we placed our top executive of the military industrial complex in front of it, and any abductee will tell you that little guy can sit there and download all the information in your head so fast. make your head
Amazing.
spin. They said, well, why did he? Well, I said, you didn't understand. The ship was crashed, in my opinion, on purpose. I said, the idea was, they don't care how many of them die because it's toasters anyway. They got a million
Right.
more just like them.
Right.
The point is, they just need one of them to live, and he just needs to sit in front of the right person. I said, well, how do you know it's true? I said, why didn't they ever come and get him back? Why is he still at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base? Because he's still getting good intel.
So there are a few people who know what's going on here.
That is correct.
Okay. Derrel, it has been wonderful. We are lucky at the New Era Times to have had Derrel Sims here to talk about aliens and all things alien. Please find Derrel on the Animal Planet on his program Uncovering Aliens. It's truly fascinating. Thank you, Derrel.
Thank you so
Again.
much.
Thanks.